Well, as I indicated to you that welcome back to Brown campus, and we are very proud of your accomplishments. But can you recap for us your journey from that first year at Brown to the CEO of Workday?
God, that's a long answer, so I'll try not to make it long. I had a great experience at Brown, made a lot of great friends, have kept up with many of those people. My dad was an electrical engineer, so I became one too. But as I got nearer to graduation, I just didn't think that was the best fit for me. I wanted to learn something about business, so I went to work on Wall Street for a few years, which is now not very popular, especially if you watched the Republican debate last night. I mean, Wall Street was the big loser. But I had a great experience for a few years, learned a lot about business, and at that point really came to the conclusion I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to go start something. So having no entrepreneurial experience, I figured business school would be a good way to get there. So applied, was fortunate enough to get into Stanford, and I think Stanford and Brown are very similar. They're very supportive, entrepreneurial, open-minded schools, and just explored different opportunities and decided to go work at the time, a very small company called PeopleSoft. And was hired by Dave Duffield, who's my co-founder at Workday, and Dave's one of the famous software entrepreneurs of all time. He owns half of Workday right now, which is now a $15 billion company, and he's planning on giving it all away. He's just a very generous guy. He hired me over a beer when I was 27 years old, and we've been together now for coming on 23 years. I was at PeopleSoft for 6 years, became the head of products, was passed over for the CEO job, and that was the right thing. I wasn't ready to be CEO, so I went off into venture capital. I'm getting to I'm trying to do the fast version.
No, that's fine. Take your time.
Had a great time, and I'm still connected, as you mentioned, to Greylock. But about around 2003, 2004, Oracle launched a hostile takeover, the Darth Vader of our industry, Larry Ellison. I like Larry. I think he's a fine guy. But they launched a hostile takeover. The board of PeopleSoft decided to replace that CEO and brought Dave and I out of retirement to try to get the company back on a path for innovation. It was at that time that we sort of came up with the idea of what became Workday. We thought PeopleSoft would move to this new technology called the cloud. Back then it was called software as a service. And we ran out of time at PeopleSoft, but sat down around a diner in Truckee, California, and decided to start Workday. And that was a little over 10 years ago, and basically started building these HR and finance applications. Very happy to have Brown as a customer. You run all of your human resources and finance on Workday, so very, very grateful for that. As do a lot of Fortune 500 companies. This week I was at Coca-Cola, who manages all their employees worldwide on Workday, Bank of America, Hewlett-Packard. Importantly, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, all of those modern companies, they don't deploy software. They run in the cloud, and they use Workday to manage their business. So fast forward 10 years, and it's been so far a great ride. We're up to 4,500 employees, about 1,000 customers. We will pass $1 billion in revenues this year, and the future looks good.
So what I'm curious to know is, can you talk about the culture of innovation at Workday? How do you innovate in your organization?
So we pride ourselves on being a great company to work for. We've been voted the best company to work for in the Bay Area 5 years in a row. We just made Fortune's top 100 companies to work for in the world. I think we're number 22. Part of that is just creating an environment where it's okay to take risk and encouraging people to experiment, try new things. We think and act more like a consumer internet company. So we have a group called Workday Labs. And they try everything. They try, how can Twitter become part of a business application? How should we track location of employees? That turned out to be not such a good idea. But we try a lot of different things, and that sort of engenders a creativity, and what we hope are the best ideas bubble up. And so every idea starts off as a good idea, and then you have to work through whether it's a feasible idea. But part of it is just having a very happy, motivated, engaged workforce. We hire a lot of millennials, a lot of college grads. Last year, we had 1,500 new hires. 400 came right out of college, so anybody from Brown that wants to come to Workday, we welcome college grads. We We have a great program. We call it Generation Workday, and after 2 years, you graduate. Just a big party. But we now have 700 college grads over the last 3 or 4 years, and so it's become a big part of our culture. And frankly, a lot of the innovation comes out of that group because they grew up with all of these new devices and all of these new services, as opposed to someone like me that, I started using a smartphone when I was 40 because that's when it showed up, but they've been using it since they were 15.
No, that's so true. And at Brown, we do like parties, so I like the sound of that. So now, we just recently, just last week, actually hosted Michael Dell here. And I know Dell is one of your customers, right?
Michael's a very good friend.
And Dell is a customer of Workday, right?
Yes, and we're a customer of theirs.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, so one of the things Michael Dell is fond of saying oftentimes is technology is about enabling human potential. That's one of his very favorite phrases that he uses a lot, quotes. And so can you talk in terms of how your products and your company helps enable human potential?
Well, I think we're all familiar with the consumer internet and how it enables things like collaboration, communication, Facebook and LinkedIn, commerce, Amazon, information access, Google. Well, why shouldn't our very simple philosophy is, well, the work environment should work just like that. So you each come to work with an expectation of what you can do in your personal life with all those consumer services, and yet historically you'd come to work and see these crappy old systems that were not intuitive and hard to use and not productive because they were built 20 years ago when user interfaces didn't really matter. So our view is what Workday has to do is to fit into that world of Slack and Evernote and Dropbox and just be another utility that lets you get work done in a way that requires no training, makes it fun to use the application, works on every device everywhere. And so we think and act like a consumer internet company, but we happen to solve HR and finance business problems. And that's the way we focus on empowering people, and the best applications are the ones that people use. You can have really powerful applications, but if they're hard to use and no one uses them, that's totally a waste.
Oh, that's great. And perhaps you already started addressing this, but what I was curious to know was, so in terms of your competitors, and these may be the older companies that you talked about, SAP, Oracle, potentially. And so compared to those companies, and you started leading into that, how is Workday different? What is your secret sauce?
Well, I think, I lived in that world. Is this going to be recorded?
Yes.
Talk about the competition? I'm going to be careful then.
Yeah,
okay.
It's being recorded and live streamed.
Okay.
So. But you're on Brown campus, so all views are welcome.
Campus.
So.
Now we joke about SAP as Frankensoft. It's a huge, very successful company. They were a very formidable competitor in the client-server era, but that's 25 years ago now. The key to all the successful cloud companies, Salesforce, Workday, Amazon, Google, is that they all started with a clean sheet of paper right around the same time, somewhere between 2000 and 2005, and they designed these services to be built on low-cost servers, elastic computing, as you know, and consumer internet-style user interfaces, and every customer is on exactly the same version. So there's not 5 versions of Amazon, there's not 5 versions of Workday, there's only one. So we tend to innovate like a consumer internet company, and we think like a consumer internet company. Those two vendors are trying to bring code that's 25, 30 years old into the modern era, and they don't think like a consumer internet company. So the user interfaces are hard to use. Every customer is on a different version. So when it comes time to upgrade, it's very expensive for the customers. The only way, and it's the history of technology, the only way for them to be successful would be to start with a clean sheet of paper and build these new applications from scratch, but they've chosen not to do that. And that created our huge opportunity. Instead, they're trying to take those 25-year-old applications or make a lot of acquisitions. In the case of SAP, I think they've made 12 acquisitions, tie it all together and hope the customer likes it. And they don't. So,
kind of buy and pray methodology, maybe?
Buy and pray. We call it Frankensoft because an arm might be one acquisition, Concur for expenses, and the leg might be Ariba for procurement, SuccessFactors for performance. And then every one of those applications has a different user interface, a different security model. So you can buy them all from one salesperson, but there are 12 different technologies, and that's why they're struggling.
No, I understand.